David Glenn Lewis, an attorney from Amarillo, Texas, vanished under mysterious circumstances on January 31st, 1993, the day of Super Bowl 27. Lewis's wife and daughter returned home from a shopping trip to find their house in an unusual state. The VCR was recording the big game, 2 turkey sandwiches were in the refrigerator, and Lewis's watch and wedding ring were left on the kitchen counter. Despite these clues, Lewis was nowhere to be found. The following day, a taxi driver in Dallas recalled taking a nervous man, matching Lewis's description, from a hotel to the Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. This man paid in cash from a wad of $100 bills. Additionally, a friend reported seeing Lewis at the Southwest Airlines terminal in Amarillo on January 31st, appearing somewhat agitated and without luggage. Concurrently, back in Amarillo, Lewis's absence was noted when he missed 2 work appointments, prompting his wife to report him missing. At around 10:30 p.m. on February 1st, 1993, motorists in Moxie, Washington, reported seeing a disoriented man walking along State Route 24. Notably, this man, who would turn out to be Lewis, was wearing military-style clothing and work boots, which his family stated he didn't own and wouldn't wear. When they turned back to warn other drivers, they found the man dead, the apparent victim of a hit and run. The deceased, lacking identification, was labeled as John Doe and buried in Washington. Initial investigations into Lewis's disappearance and the unidentified hit-and-run victim proceeded separately. In Amarillo, police discovered Lewis's red Ford Explorer, parked near the courthouse with his keys under the floor mat and his driver's license and credit cards inside. His wife reported that only a pair of green sweatpants was missing from his wardrobe. Financial records indicated extremely unusual activity. There was an unexplained $5,000 deposit into his bank account on January 30th. The $5,000 deposit into Lewis's bank account on January 30th continues to remain entirely unexplained. This was followed by plane tickets purchased in his name from Amarillo to Dallas and Los Angeles to Dallas. Despite these clues, the investigation stalled out. Lewis had received death threats during his time as a judge and was involved in a number of contentious legal cases in his time, leading his family to suspect foul play. However, the police speculated he might have left voluntarily due to professional and personal pressures. The case remained cold until 2003, when Detective Pat Ditter revisited it, spurred by a series on missing persons. Utilizing internet searches, Ditter linked the unidentified hit-and-run victim in Washington to Lewis. The discovery of Lewis's distinctive glasses among the deceased's possessions confirmed the connection. DNA testing provided definitive proof that the John Doe was indeed David Glenn Lewis, ending an 11-year mystery about his identity but leaving many questions open. The circumstances leading to Lewis's presence in Washington, the nature of his journey, and the identity of the driver responsible for his death remain unresolved. Lewis's family believes he was likely kidnapped and transported across the country, while police have not entirely ruled out voluntary disappearance. The family has based this view on the fact that Lewis was involved in high-profile, contentious legal cases. The family also noted that Lewis had received death threats during his tenure as a judge. I might be incorrect on this, and I don't have any specific evidence to back this up, but I have to imagine that most judges receive these sorts of threats on occasion. It's not clear to me on what basis the police view the disappearance as possibly voluntary, or if there's any evidence whatsoever to support this. Notably, David Glenn Lewis had no known connections to the Yakima area, nor to Washington state in general. On March 5, 1957, William and Margaret Patterson seemingly vanished without a trace from their home in El Paso, Texas. The couple was well known in El Paso. William, 52, owned Patterson Photo Supply, a successful photography equipment store. Margaret, 42, assisted him in the day-to-day operation of the business. They lived a comfortable life, owning a luxurious home at 3000 Piedmont Drive, a Cadillac, and a boat. The Pattersons were living their American dream. On the evening of their disappearance, a neighbor, Jerry Cash, visited their home to deliver Girl Scout cookies. She reported that Margaret seemed very upset, and William appeared unhappy with the visit. This was the last confirmed sighting of the couple. The next day, their house was found in a state of complete disarray. Dishes from the previous night's meal were still in the sink, and several items, including expensive clothing left at the cleaners, had been abandoned without any further instructions. One of the peculiar aspects of the case was the discovery of their Cadillac being driven by Doyle Kirkland, an employee of Patterson's store. Kirkland claimed that William had asked him to take the car for maintenance as they were going on a vacation. This immediately raised suspicions, but no concrete evidence linked Kirkland to their disappearance. Adding to the mystery, Herbert Roth, the Pattersons' accountant, received a telegram on March 15, 1957, purportedly from William. This telegram instructed him to manage the couple's affairs, including selling their mobile home and hiring Kirkland as the new store manager. To interject, this makes me less suspicious of Doyle Kirkland. This appears to have been quite a blatant attempt to frame him as being involved in the disappearance. The telegram, however, was sent from Dallas via a phone call, which meant it could have been placed by anyone. Over the years, various theories have emerged regarding the couple's fate. Some believe they fell victim to foul play due to their secretive nature and William's reported infidelity with a young woman named Estefana Arroyo Morfin. Morfin had stated that William had mentioned needing to disappear soon, though she later retracted this statement. Another theory posits that the Pattersons were involved in espionage activities and left to avoid repercussions. Some witnesses claim to have seen the couple in Mexico City years after they vanished, but these sightings were never confirmed. In the following decades, various investigators revisited the case, but no new substantial evidence came to light. Theories have continued to abound, including speculation about their possible new lives under assumed identities, or being victims of a crime that was never uncovered. At this point, I suspect that their disappearance will never be solved. Every potential suspect would either now be deceased or be well into their 80s at youngest. On April 18, 2016, the community of Midlothian, Texas, was shattered by the brutal slaying of Missy Bevers, a 45-year-old fitness instructor and mother of 3. As she prepared for an early morning boot camp class at the Creekside Church of Christ, an unknown assailant took her life, a crime that remains unsolved to this day. Born on August 9, 1970 in Graham, Texas, Missy Bevers married Brandon Bevers in 1998. The couple settled in Red Oak, Texas, raising 3 daughters. In the pre-dawn hours of April 18, 2016, amid a heavy thunderstorm, Missy arrived at the church to set up for her 5 a.m. class. Surveillance footage from inside the church captured a disturbing scene: an individual dressed in what appeared to be police tactical gear. This individual was wearing items including a black helmet, balaclava, gloves, and a vest labeled police. Further, the person was captured on surveillance roaming the hallways carrying a hammer, opening doors, and breaking windows. At approximately 5 a.m., Missy's students arrived to find her lifeless body. She had suffered puncture wounds to her head and chest, injuries consistent with the tools the suspect was carrying. The Midlothian Police Department launched an extensive investigation, releasing the surveillance footage to the public in hopes of identifying the suspect. The suspect's distinctive gait and attire led to widespread speculation about their identity and possible motives. Notably, Police initially revealed that the suspect was male, but upon further review of the footage, they changed this finding to unknown. To jump ahead slightly, in 2021, the FBI asked a forensic podiatrist to study the individual's gait to attempt to determine the gender of the individual. Notably, this podiatrist was unable to do so, advising the FBI that it's generally not possible to conclusively tell what gender someone is by their gait alone. Further, he noted that the individual was weighed down by heavy equipment, which could have also altered the suspect's gait. Anyway, let's jump back to the initial investigation. Despite receiving over 3,000 tips, authorities have not made any arrests. Early theories suggested that Missy may have interrupted a burglary, but this was later discounted as nothing appeared to be stolen from the church. Investigators also explored Missy's personal life, uncovering financial strains and marital issues. Notably, days before her death, Missy received a creepy message on LinkedIn from an unknown male, which she discussed with a friend. Given that this is an ongoing investigation, the details of these messages have never been released to the public. Family members, including Missy's husband Brandon and father-in-law Randy, were scrutinized, but eventually cleared. Randy raised suspicions when he brought a blood-stained shirt to a dry cleaner shortly after the slaying, claiming the blood was from him intervening in a dogfight. In May 2016, Midlothian police released a still image of what they believed to be a 2010 to 2012 Nissan Altima. This vehicle was observed driving around the parking lot of SWFA Outdoors, a sporting goods store located near Creekside Church, where Missy Bevers was slain. The car entered the parking lot at approximately 2 a.m. on the morning of April 18, 2016. It left the parking lot just a few minutes later. Midlothian police expressed interest in identifying and speaking with the owner of the vehicle. According to Assistant Chief Kevin Johnson, the owner was not necessarily considered a suspect. Instead, investigators hoped the person could provide information that might help the case. Despite this appeal, the identity of the vehicle's driver remained unknown. In December 2016, the sporting goods store released the full surveillance footage showing the vehicle's behavior in the parking lot. The footage revealed that the driver's actions were unusual, to say the least. The car entered the parking lot in the early hours of the morning, circled the lot, and randomly flashed its headlights. The driver then parked in a secluded area for a brief period before exiting the parking lot onto US Route 287. As of June 2023, the police have not identified the owner or driver of the Nissan, and there's no conclusive evidence that this individual is related to the case. 8 years later, Missy Bevers' case remains unsolved, but it is not considered a cold case. According to the latest information I was able to find from earlier this year, the Midlothian Police Department continues to assign full-time detectives to the investigation. Annual vigils are held to honor Missy's memory and keep public attention on the case. In February 2024, Brandon Bevers spoke publicly for the first time in years, expressing doubt that any law enforcement agency knows the identity of the killer. Notably, Brandon stated that he didn't think Missy's slaying was targeted, but this appears to have just been his own personal take on the matter. Anyone with information regarding this case is strongly encouraged to contact the Midlothian Police Department Criminal Investigation Division. On December 6, 1991, Austin, Texas was shaken by an unsolved crime so heinous that it shook the city to its core. 4 teenage girls, 13-year-old Amy Ayers, 15-year-old Sarah Harbison, her 17-year-old sister Jennifer Harbison, and 17-year-old Eliza Thomas were slain in a frozen yogurt shop. The evening began like any other. Jennifer and Eliza were working the closing shift at the yogurt shop on West Anderson Lane. Sarah and her friend Amy planned to meet them there for a ride home after a night out. As the shop prepared to close around 11 p.m., a couple noticed two men acting suspiciously at a table. Shortly before midnight, a patrol officer spotted smoke billowing from the shop. Firefighters arrived promptly, and upon extinguishing the blaze, discovered the bodies of the four girls. Each had been bound and gagged with their own clothing and shot in the head execution style. The crime scene presented significant challenges. The fire, set to destroy evidence, coupled with the water used to extinguish it, compromised potential forensic clues. Investigators determined that two firearms were used in the slayings. The back door was found unlocked, suggesting the perpetrators exited that way. In the immediate aftermath, the Austin Police Department faced immense pressure to solve the case. Disturbingly, over 50 individuals confessed to the slayings, including serial killer Kenneth McDuff, who was in the area at the time. However, all these confessions were eventually deemed false. A significant break seemed to come in 1999 when four men, Michael Scott, Robert Springsteen, Maurice Pierce, and Forrest Wellborn, were arrested. They had been teenagers at the time of the event. Scott and Springsteen confessed during intense interrogations but later recanted, claiming coercion. Notably, Detective Hector Polanco, involved in the interrogations, had a history of extracting false confessions. Despite the contentious confessions, Springsteen and Scott were tried and convicted in 2001 and 2002, respectively. Pierce and Wellborn were released due to insufficient evidence. However, in 2006, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals overturned Springsteen's conviction, citing violations of his Sixth Amendment right to confront his accuser. Scott's conviction was similarly overturned later. The case took another turn in 2008 when advanced DNA testing revealed the presence of an unknown male's DNA on one of the victims. Perhaps unsurprisingly, given the shoddy nature of the confessions, this DNA did not match any of the four accused men. Consequently, in 2009, all charges against Scott and Springsteen were dismissed, and they were released from custody. Over the years, the investigation has seen numerous leads and theories, but none have led to a definitive resolution. The Austin Police Department continues to treat the case as active, hoping that advancements in forensic technology or new information might one day bring justice for the four girls. Notably, in February 2022, it appears that the Austin PD engaged in new forensic techniques with the DNA found. I suspect that, like many other cases I've discussed on my channel, genetic genealogy will one day crack this long unsolved Texas crime. If you have any information in relation to this case, please contact the Austin Police Department. Sindy Gina Crow, known simply as the Smith County Jane Doe for nearly 40 years, was recently identified through a groundbreaking effort combining forensic science and genetic genealogy. Crow's skeletal remains were first discovered in October 1985 along Interstate 20 in Smith County, Texas. Her body had reportedly been left in a secluded gully for over a year before a highway maintenance crew found her. With no form of identification and no immediate family ties apparent, her case went cold until advancements in DNA technology offered new possibilities. In 2021, the Smith County Sheriff's Office enlisted the DNA Doe Project, the DDP, a nonprofit focused on solving cold cases involving unidentified remains. Working with advanced genetic tools, the team generated a DNA profile from Crow's bones and uploaded it to genealogy databases that allow law enforcement access. Through this, they were able to find a match in Crow's family tree. A significant breakthrough came in late 2023 when volunteers discovered a DNA match with one of Crow's first cousins. This connection was pivotal, leading the investigative team to Crow's identity within hours, a rare feat in such cases. Crow, who was in her mid-20s at the time of her death, was identified formally in April 2024, bringing an end to her decades-long mystery. That said, while the mystery of her identity has now been solved, this is really just the start of the unsolved mystery associated with Sindy Crow. Originally from Arlington, Texas, she had a daughter in July 1984, only a short period before she went missing. According to family accounts, Crow had a somewhat transient lifestyle, with family members describing her as a drifter. She often hitchhiked, which raised speculation about her safety. Her daughter, who now resides in Alabama, grew up with various theories surrounding her mother's disappearance, including suspicions that Crow might have entered witness protection. Complicating matters, some family members knew Crow by a different name, Gina Ortega, adding layers to the confusion around her case. There has been speculation that she had been reported missing under the Gina Ortega name. However, given her drifter lifestyle and the lack of communication between the authorities in the 80s, this may have gone entirely unnoticed. The mystery surrounding her cause of death persists, as authorities have yet to determine whether her death was intentional or resulted from an accident. A t-shirt with a Top Rail Country Music Dallas insignia was found near her body, but it provided no substantial leads. Investigators believe her body was likely deliberately concealed, though specific evidence of a crime is lacking. Her daughter and remaining family have expressed relief at finally having closure, even if details surrounding her final days remain unclear. If you have any information about Sindy Crow, please contact the Arlington County Sheriff's Office. The Von Erich wrestling family has been marked by a series of tragic events often referred to as the Von Erich Curse. The patriarch of the family, Jack Adkisson, better known by his ring name Fritz Von Erich, was a notable figure in wrestling. Fritz had 6 sons, 5 of whom followed him into wrestling: Kevin, David, Kerry, Mike, and Chris. Each of these sons faced personal and professional challenges, and except for Kevin, each of their lives ended prematurely under tragic circumstances. The string of tragedies began with the passing of Fritz's first son. Jack Jr. ended up touching a trailer tongue and receiving an electric shock which knocked him unconscious. Tragically, he fell face first into a melting snow puddle and drowned, which is perhaps one of the most tragic freak accidents I've ever read about. David Von Erich, known as the Yellow Rose of Texas, was one of the brightest stars in the family. He passed in 1984 during a tour in Japan, officially due to acute enteritis. However, there were widespread speculations and claims about the involvement of painkillers in his passing. Kerry Von Erich, another prominent figure, faced numerous personal struggles, including a serious motorcycle accident in 1986 that eventually led to the amputation of his right foot. Despite this, he continued to wrestle, hiding his amputation from fans. His life ended tragically by his own hands in 1993 as a result of mental health struggles stemming largely from the motorcycle accident and its consequences. Mike Von Erich had yet another heartbreaking story and tragic ending. After undergoing surgery, he suffered from toxic shock syndrome, which significantly deteriorated his health and professional wrestling ability. He suffered brain damage as a result of an extended extremely high fever. Chris Von Erich, the youngest, also wrestled but struggled to live up to the family's legacy, which weighed heavily on him. The Von Erichs were known for their significant stature and physical presence, which Chris, at 5'5", simply didn't have, according to wrestling analysts. He too passed young and by his own hand, which completed the series of losses that devastated the Von Erich family and contributed to the myth of the curse. Despite these tragedies, Kevin Von Erich, the sole surviving son of Fritz, has managed to carry on the family name. He has spoken publicly about the immense personal loss he has endured, but has found a way to continue his life and legacy, raising a family of his own. But good news for the Von Erichs. Kevin's sons, Marshall and Ross, are having success in the professional wrestling world. They're presently signed to the AEW, a fairly major competitor of the WWE for those unaware. Notably in 2023, the struggles of the Von Erich family were portrayed in the movie The Iron Claw, with Zac Efron playing Kevin Von Erich. Hey everyone, it's Jimmy here, just taking a quick second to shout out all my patrons and YouTube members. Also, a quick reminder to like and subscribe and to hit that notification bell so you can be the first to know when I drop new content. Now back to business. In 1946, the city of Texarkana, which straddles the state line between Texas and Arkansas, experienced a series of violent attacks. These events unfolded between February and May, leading to widespread fear and uncertainty among the residents. The first attack occurred on February 22, 1946. Jimmy Hollis and Mary Jean Larry were parked on a local lover's lane when a man wearing a white sack with cutout eyes and mouth holes approached them, shining a flashlight. He forced Hollis out of the car, beat him severely, and then assaulted Larry. Both victims survived, but their accounts of the attacker varied, with Hollis believing the man was white, while Larry thought he was black. The second attack happened on March 24, 1946, when Richard L. Griffin and Polly Ann Moore were found dead in Griffin's car on another secluded lover's lane. They had both been shot in the head, with evidence suggesting they were attacked outside the car and then placed back inside. On April 14, 1946, the third attack targeted Paul Martin and Betty Jo Booker. Martin's body was found on the side of the road, shot multiple times, while Booker's body was discovered nearly 2 miles away. The weapon used was the same Colt automatic pistol from the previous attack. The final attack took place on May 3, 1946. Virgil Starks was shot through a window in his home while reading a newspaper. His wife, Katie Starks, was also shot but managed to escape and seek help from a neighbor. Despite her injuries, she survived and provided some information to the authorities, though it was not enough to identify the attacker. The media dubbed the perpetrator the Phantom Killer due to his ability to strike and disappear without a trace. The Texarkana Gazette played a significant role in shaping this eerie moniker. Despite extensive investigations and the involvement of the Texas Rangers and FBI, the Phantom Killer was never caught. One of the main suspects was Yule Swinney, a known criminal with a history of car theft and other offenses. Swinney's wife initially provided details about the crimes that were not public knowledge, leading authorities to believe he might be the Phantom Killer. However, her testimony was inconsistent, and she later refused to testify against him, resulting in a lack of concrete evidence to prosecute him for the attacks. Swinney was imprisoned for other crimes, but no further attacks occurred while he was behind bars. Another suspect confessed in a note before taking his own life in 1948. He claimed responsibility for some of the attacks, but his alibi was supported by witnesses who stated he was elsewhere during the time of the slayings. The fear instilled by these events led to significant changes in the community. Residents began to arm themselves, install new locks, and adhere to strict curfews. The atmosphere of dread was so pervasive that it inspired the 1977 horror film The Town That Dreaded Sundown, which, although dramatized, was based on these real-life events. This movie was remade in 2014, indicating a strong ongoing interest in this sinister event. The Goatman is a cryptid found in certain parts of the United States, predominantly in the states of Texas and Maryland. Also, yeah, even though this is a Texas Mysteries series, I'm going to discuss the Maryland Goatman here too, because who doesn't want more Goatman content? But yeah, I digress. Let's get back to the mystery at hand. Described as a half man, half goat hybrid, this cryptid is often portrayed wielding an axe and lurking in wooded areas, instilling fear in those who cross its path. In Maryland, the Goatman is closely associated with Prince George's County. One of the earliest tales dates back to the 1950s and 1960s, centering around the vicinity of Fletchertown Road. According to local lore, the Goatman was once a scientist named Stephen Fletcher, who worked at the Beltsville Agricultural Research Center. After a failed experiment involving goat DNA, he mutated into the monstrous Goatman. Another version of the Maryland Goatman legend portrays him as an old hermit living in the woods, emerging at night to attack cars with an axe. Sightings often describe a creature with the lower body of a goat and the upper body of a man, standing around 7 feet tall and covered in coarse hair. The Maryland Goatman is said to emit high-pitched squeals or goat-like bleats, adding an eerie auditory element to the encounters. The Goatman of Maryland gained significant attention in 1971 when the death of a dog was attributed to the creature. A local family blamed the Goatman for the incident, leading to widespread panic and numerous reported sightings, and the story went national, being picked up by the Washington Post. In Texas, the Goatman is linked to the old Alton Bridge in Denton County, popularly known as Goatman's Bridge. Built in 1884, this iron truss bridge spans Hickory Creek and has become a hotspot for paranormal enthusiasts. The legend tells of a successful African-American goat farmer named Oscar Washburn, who was known as the Goatman due to his trade. Oscar Washburn was said to have relocated to the area sometime after the Civil War, and some locals, jealous of his success, are said to have slain him on the Goatman's Bridge. Visitors to Goatman's Bridge have reported eerie phenomena, including strange noises, apparitions, and the unsettling feeling of being watched. Some claim to have seen a goat-headed figure on the bridge or in the surrounding woods. The Goatman legend shares similarities with other North American cryptids, such as the Pope Lick Monster in Kentucky and the Sheepman of Pennsylvania. While the Goatman is primarily a figure of regional folklore, the advent of the internet has propelled the legend to a wider audience. Reddit, YouTube, creepypasta stories, and social media have allowed for the sharing and embellishment of Goatman tales. Despite the numerous accounts and stories, concrete evidence of the Goatman's existence remains elusive. Photographs and videos purporting to show the creature are often blurry or easily debunked as hoaxes according to skeptics. However, believers maintain that the creature may have been caught on a trail cam. Ava Grace Baldwin was last seen on September 17, 2015, and is believed to have been abducted by her mother, Catherine Ann Baldwin, who has a felony warrant for interfering with child custody. Ava's parents, Catherine Baldwin and David Hopper, had a brief marriage lasting just over a month. After their separation, Catherine moved to Texas, and David, residing in Oklahoma, faced challenges in maintaining contact with his daughter. In 2013, after a custody battle, David was granted joint custody of Ava. In September 2015, Ava's elementary school contacted David, informing him that Ava had been absent for nearly 3 weeks. When authorities visited Catherine's listed address, they discovered it was an empty lot, indicating that Catherine had provided false information. Catherine Baldwin has a history of significant mental illness as well as issues with substance abuse. She's supposed to take medication, but there's been no record of her refilling her prescriptions since 2015. She and Ava may move frequently and may be staying in women's shelters or homeless shelters. According to the authorities, Catherine may be telling people that she is being stalked by her ex-spouse or other individuals. In April 2016, 7 months after their disappearance, Catherine's vehicle, a silver 2014 Ford Escape, was found abandoned in a parking lot on Whitby Road in San Antonio. Despite this discovery, there have been no confirmed sightings of Ava or Catherine since 2015. David Hopper remains hopeful that Ava is alive. He said there have been sightings of the pair since they disappeared, including contact from a couple in Florida who said Catherine tried to hand over custody of Ava to them in 2016. In 2020, the San Antonio police confirmed Catherine may be using as many as a dozen aliases in her travels across the United States. Ava's case has garnered significant attention on social media platforms, with users speculating about her whereabouts. In 2022, a supposedly creepy TikTok account featuring a mother-daughter duo singing and dancing led some to believe they might be Ava and Catherine. However, investigations confirmed that the individuals in the videos were not them. As of November 2024, Ava Grace Baldwin remains missing. Her father, David Hopper, continues to search for her, holding on to hope that she is alive and will one day return home. Authorities urge anyone with information about Ava's whereabouts to contact the San Antonio Police Department. The Texas killing fields is a term used to describe a desolate area along Interstate 45 between Houston and Galveston, Texas, where over 30 bodies of women have been discovered since the 1970s. This region, notorious for its grim history, continues to be a focal point of unsolved cases. The first known victim linked to this area was Colette Wilson, a 13-year-old girl who disappeared in June 1971. Her remains were found 5 months later near a reservoir. This tragic event set a precedent for many similar cases throughout the 1970s, with several young women being found in or near water bodies, often bound and in distressing conditions. These discoveries underscored a pattern of abductions and fatalities that puzzled and horrified the local community. In the 1980s, the area known as the Calder Road Field in League City became particularly notorious. 4 women were found in this remote field between 1983 and 1991. Heidi Fye, a local bartender, was the first, discovered after a dog's grisly find led investigators to her remains. Laura Miller, a 16-year-old girl struggling with mental health issues, vanished in 1984. Her remains were found 2 years later in the same field. 2 more women, later identified as Audrey Lee Cook and Donna Prudhomme, were found in 1986 and 1991, respectively. These cases were believed to be the work of a serial perpetrator, given the similarities in the victims' profiles and the locations where they were found. Several suspects have been linked to the Texas killing fields over the years, but conclusive evidence has been elusive. Edward Harold Bell, a convicted criminal, claimed responsibility for multiple cases, but his confessions were inconsistent and never led to concrete charges for these crimes. Further, he eventually recanted his confessions, though he spent his entire life in prison for slaying another man. Another notable suspect was Robert Abel, a retired NASA engineer, who was intensely scrutinized by law enforcement and victim families alike. No direct evidence tied him to the cases, and he was ultimately stalked by a victim's father, who attempted to force a confession out of him. No confession was forthcoming from this less than legitimate method, and it appears that he was cleared in relation to the case. The late 1990s saw a renewed wave of investigations. William Lewis Reese, already convicted of other violent crimes, was connected through DNA evidence to several cases in the Texas killing fields. In 1997, he was implicated in the abductions and deaths of Laura Smither, Kellyanne Cox, and Jessica Kane, revealing a chilling modus operandi that terrorized the area for years. Efforts to solve these cases have been hampered by a lack of consistent forensic evidence and the complex nature of the crimes. Many victims were initially classified as runaways, delaying critical investigative actions. The region's isolation and the transient nature of suspects contributed to the difficulties in solving these crimes. The Aurora Incident of 1897 is an event in early modern UFO lore, marked by an alleged airship crash in the small town of Aurora, Texas. On the morning of April 17, 1897, residents were startled by what appeared to be a cigar-shaped airship that crashed into Judge Proctor's windmill. This caused a significant explosion that destroyed the windmill and the judge's flower garden. The local newspaper, the Dallas Morning News, published a detailed account 2 days later, describing the wreckage and an extraterrestrial pilot who was reportedly found among the debris. This pilot was said to have been buried in the local cemetery following a small funeral. According to reports, the wreckage was examined by townspeople and a purported expert on astronomy named T.J. Weems, who speculated that the pilot might have been from Mars. This detail catered to the late 19th century fascination with Mars and extraterrestrial life, influenced by contemporary astronomical theories and the widespread Mars fever of the era. The materials found at the crash site were described as being made of a metal resembling aluminum and silver, and there were claims of mysterious hieroglyphic papers found with the pilot. Over the years, the incident has attracted significant attention and skepticism, leading many to speculate about the authenticity of the event. Investigations throughout the 20th century, including efforts by the Mutual UFO Network and various historians and journalists, have resulted in mixed conclusions. For instance, a 1979 report interviewed a local resident who claimed that the story was fabricated by the newspaper. The reasoning for this being a means to draw attention to the struggling town, which had been bypassed by the railroad and was economically declining. Despite ongoing skepticism and numerous investigations, no conclusive evidence has been found to fully confirm or refute the claims made in the original 1897 article. The pilot's grave remains unexcavated to this day, with modern technology such as ground-penetrating radar being employed to explore the site without disturbing it. Yet local authorities have consistently denied permission for exhumation, keeping the mystery alive. To me, it seems that this could easily be resolved by exhuming the alleged body, and I suspect that local authorities' refusal to do so indicates there's likely nothing of substance there. After all, Aurora is a fairly major UFO enthusiast pilgrimage site. It's no Roswell or Area 51, but the surrounding lore definitely generates income for the residents. On the night of August 8, 2013, Brandon Lawson, a 26-year-old oil worker from San Angelo, Texas, had an argument with his girlfriend, Ladessa Lofton. This led him to leave their home and drive towards his father's house in Crowley, Texas. Shortly before midnight, Brandon ran out of gas on Route 277 near Bronte, Texas. This marked the beginning of a series of mysterious events leading to his disappearance. At approximately 12:30 a.m. on August 9th, Brandon called his brother, Kyle Lawson, asking for help as his truck had run out of gas. During this call, Brandon claimed that 3 individuals in the neighborhood were chasing him. Kyle, suspecting his brother might be hallucinating due to his past substance use, set out with his wife and son to bring Brandon gas. As Kyle was en route, Brandon made a frantic 911 call around 12:50 a.m., telling the dispatcher that he was in the middle of a field and needed the police. He mentioned that he had run out of gas and that someone was chasing him into the woods. This call, filled with confusing and incoherent statements, is one of the most critical and debated pieces of evidence in the case. Shortly after the 911 call, a truck driver reported Brandon's abandoned truck, which was parked hazardously on the road. A sheriff's deputy arrived at the scene at 1:10 a.m., around the same time as Kyle. Despite Brandon telling Kyle over the phone that he could see him, neither Kyle nor the deputy could locate Brandon. Kyle initially thought Brandon might be hiding due to an outstanding warrant, which is a fairly reasonable assumption. Kyle continued to search the area until dawn, but found no trace whatsoever of Brandon. The official search efforts, including the use of thermal imaging cameras, helicopters, and search dogs, also failed to locate him. The rough terrain, coupled with wild animals and the nearby Colorado River, made the search even more challenging. Over the years, various theories have emerged about what happened to Brandon Lawson. Some speculate that he left voluntarily to start a new life, especially considering his recent cash withdrawal from his retirement account. Others believe he might have succumbed to the harsh elements or encountered foul play. The enigmatic 911 call continues to be a focal point of these theories, with many debating what Brandon was trying to convey and what exactly happened that night. The case took a significant turn in February 2022 when search parties discovered clothing and human remains near Brandon's last known location. While DNA results are pending, the discovery is believed to bring some closure to the mystery of Brandon Lawson's disappearance. On June 5, 2023, a Facebook post provided an update on the DNA analysis of the human remains. Unfortunately, as of the latest update in October 2024, results are still pending. The delays are due to the small quantity of remains, which makes each analysis attempt destructive, and the significant DNA degradation after over 8 years of exposure. The Texas Rangers, who are in charge of the operation, are considering other options for identification. However, that said, the official position of the Texas Rangers is that the body discovered is with near certainty Brandon Lawson's. The disappearance and slaying of Sally McNelly, 18, and Shane Stewart, 17, remain one of Texas's most unsettling unsolved cases. On the night of July 4th, 1988, the young couple attended a 4th of July fireworks show in San Angelo, Texas, an evening meant for celebration that would turn into a tragedy. Months later, in November 1988, their bodies were discovered near Twin Buttes Reservoir, both victims of fatal gunshot wounds. What sets this case apart from other cold cases is the chilling allegations of the couple's involvement in a satanic cult. According to friends and acquaintances, Sally and Shane reportedly attended gatherings where occult rituals and black magic were practiced. This peculiar connection adds a dark layer of intrigue to their untimely deaths. Earlier that same year, the couple raised eyebrows when they turned over a firearm to local authorities. They claimed it had been given to them by a cult member who admitted it had been used in a previous slaying. When police checked the serial number, they found the weapon was stolen, but its origins and connection to any crime remained unresolved. Despite mounting questions, the case remains cold. In 2017, a person of interest was identified, but as of 2024, no arrests have been made. This is a case that's ripe for speculation, given the significant and unusual evidence that is known. One prevailing theory is that Sally and Shane's connection to the alleged satanic cult may have placed them in grave danger. By handing over the firearm, they could have marked themselves as threats to the group's secrecy. Whether the gun was directly linked to the cult's activities or simply a stolen weapon, their actions might have angered the wrong people, either within the cult or otherwise. Another theory suggests the slayings may have been an act of silencing or retribution. Could their involvement, or even just their knowledge, of occult practices have made them targets? Such a motive aligns with the secrecy and paranoia often associated with underground groups, but it's worth noting that their deaths lacked any overtly ritualistic elements. For a crime tied to a satanic cult, one might expect signs of ritual or symbolism, which were notably absent. Alternatively, some speculate their deaths may have had no connection to the occult at all. Perhaps the couple crossed paths with someone at the 4th of July celebrations who harbored violent intentions. It's possible that their association with the cult has been exaggerated, leading investigators and the public to pursue a sinister angle that overshadowed an obvious explanation. Notably, people are of course likely to get rowdy and out of control at 4th of July events. This sort of behavior could have easily led to a routine conflict escalating into something much worse. The disappearance of Kelly Dae Wilson, a 17-year-old from Gilmer, Texas, on January 5, 1992, remains an enigma. On the night she vanished, Wilson was last seen leaving her workplace, Northeast Texas Video, around 8:30 p.m., intending to go to a nearby bank to deposit her paycheck. The following morning, her stepfather discovered her car parked at her workplace, its tires slashed and flat. Wilson's belongings, including her purse, were found inside the car, but the keys were missing. No trace of Kelly has ever been found, though investigators now assume that she's deceased. The investigation into Wilson's disappearance has been fraught with controversy and intrigue, including allegations of involvement in cult activities. Initially, the case saw the arrest of Michael Beebe in connection with the tire slashing incident, although he was not linked to Wilson's disappearance. The focus also briefly turned to Wilson's boyfriend at the time, Chris Denton, who was considered a prime suspect. However, Denton was never charged in relation to the incident and is now deceased. The case took a significant and bizarre turn in 1994 when Sergeant James Brown and 7 others were indicted by a grand jury. The charges suggested a narrative that intertwined Wilson's disappearance with satanic rituals, but the case was eventually dismissed. According to the Texas Attorney General, the satanic cult theory was completely baseless and a complete distraction from Kelly Wilson's disappearance. I note that this theory emerged during the echoes of the period known as the Satanic Panic. Unfortunately, this baseless rabbit hole theory took valuable investigative resources and appears to have torn apart the community of Gilmer, Texas. Further, the sensationalist allegations, which brought media attention to the case, did little to focus on the cause of justice for Kelly. Despite the passage of time, the case remains open and active, though it has gone cold. At present, there are no active suspects or persons of interest in her case. The Gilmer Police Department continues to seek information that could lead to resolving the mystery of what happened to Kelly Wilson. If you have information which could assist the police in this matter, please contact the Gilmer Police Department. The tale of the Bear King originates from an incident reported in 1901. According to a story published in the Washington Bee, a young girl named Ramey Arland was abducted by a mysterious creature while gathering sheep near her home in Marble Falls, Texas. The creature, described as a great bear man, was said to resemble a bear but exhibited human-like intelligence and behavior. Ramey's encounter with the Bear King began innocuously. She was tending to her family's sheep when a large black bear crossed her path. As she continued, a more terrifying figure emerged, a creature that seemed both bear and man. This creature, later identified as the Bear King, abducted Ramey, carrying her to its cave. Her screams alerted her mother, who gathered a search party, but it wasn't until the next day that a hunter found Ramey wandering aimlessly. After her rescue, Ramey recounted her harrowing experience. Determined to eliminate the threat, local men formed a hunting party and tracked the creature to its lair. The Bear King confronted the hunters, displaying aggressive behavior reminiscent of a great ape, snapping its teeth, beating its chest, and roaring like a panther. Despite its intimidating presence, the hunters managed to slay the beast. The Bear King legend is intertwined with Native American folklore, specifically the Kickapoo tribe, who spoke of a bear man ruling over the bears in the region. While no physical evidence remains, the story shares similarities with other cryptid tales, such as Bigfoot, known for human-like creatures abducting people. The behavior of the Bear King, especially during its final confrontation, aligns with known intimidation tactics of great apes, adding a layer of plausibility to the creature's existence. However, there are elements to the tale which suggest the newspaper may have just made the whole thing up. The story's details, such as the mention of the Moon Mountains, a non-existent range in Texas, cast doubt on its historical accuracy. Despite the sensational nature of the event, there are no known local newspaper reports from Marble Falls or the surrounding areas at the time. If such an event did happen, one would expect at least some local reporting on it at the time. Further yet, no official records corroborate the existence of the Bear King or the events described. Nonetheless, the legend persists, drawing interest from cryptozoologists and folklore fans. In the town of Granbury, Texas, located just outside the Dallas-Fort Worth metropolitan region, the unresolved case of Holly Palmer still looms large over the community. Holly Palmer was just 23 years old, with her entire life ahead of her. The slaying occurred on November 27, 1988, at a now demolished Greyhound bus station, marking a day of profound tragedy for the Palmer family and the wider community. Holly was found to have succumbed to blunt force trauma, a grim detail that underscores the brutality of the act. The absence of robbery as a motive suggests a deeply personal dimension to the crime. In 2013, the Granbury police chief indicated that Holly may have known her assailant. This detail has propelled theories suggesting a crime of passion, yet despite decades of investigation and the evolution of forensic technology, the case remains open with no charges laid. Given the active ongoing investigation, the police have remained tight-lipped about the specifics of evidence in the matter. However, there may be a break in the case on the horizon. In my research, I was able to locate an article published on December 18, 2023 on a local Dallas news site. In this article, Granbury Police Detective Russell Gizzard advised that as of December 2023, new advanced DNA analysis techniques are being employed in relation to the investigation. Though the article doesn't outright state it, I assume he's referring to forensic genealogy techniques. Further, Detective Gizzard advised that the quote, person of interest is a Granbury resident. Despite the passage of time, the family's resolve for answers and accountability remains undiminished, with her sisters being particularly strong advocates on her behalf. On August 4, 1992, Tara Suzette Breckridge, a 23-year-old waitress at the men's club in Houston, Texas, disappeared under mysterious circumstances. She was last seen leaving her workplace at around 1 a.m., following a decision by management to send home 2 servers early due to a slow night. Tara volunteered to leave, which was considered out of character for her. A security guard escorted her to her car, marking the last time she was observed. Her vehicle, a red 1986 Pontiac Fiero, was found abandoned and locked on her route home, with no signs of a struggle but the alternator belt missing. Inside the car, a can of Mace Breckenridge carried for protection was discovered unused. The disappearance of Breckenridge has left many unanswered questions, with her boyfriend at the time, Wayne Hecker, being a person of interest. The relationship between Breckenridge and Hecker was reportedly troubled, with Breckenridge having expressed intentions of leaving him. On the night of her disappearance, Hecker claimed to be at a pool hall. Her vehicle was located only a few minutes from the establishment, and individuals there who were interviewed noted that he was absent from the pool hall from 1:45 a.m. to 3:30 a.m. Despite his assertions of innocence and lack of physical evidence linking him to the crime, suspicions lingered due to the couple's relationship and inconsistencies in Hecker's timeline. Foul play is suspected in Tara Breckridge's disappearance, with the case remaining unsolved for over 3 decades. There have been no alleged sightings of Tara since she disappeared. One popular theory alleges that the boyfriend may have played a role in her disappearance. However, no evidence whatsoever has been found to link him to the disappearance, and he has never been charged in relation to the disappearance. Another theory suggests that her disappearance was related to her work as a waitress at the Gentleman's Club. Under this theory, she may have had a stalker amongst the patrons. Supporting this theory is the fact that the club had extensive security, and she felt the need to carry mace to protect her from some of the more unsavory patrons. If you have any information with respect to Tara Breckridge, please contact the Houston Police Department. Hey, so if you made it to the end of the video and haven't clicked like and subscribe, it would be awesome if you did. Anyway, peace out, love you all, thanks for all the support.